We're being broadcast to 9 billion people, which is what I expect the viewer rate is here. I command that type of audience, as you all know. Uh, Hold on, I'm hitting live on Instagram. For those of you that watch and are like, what the hell is he doing? There's so many moving parts to this thing. Y'all have no idea the pain and the heartache and the headache that I go through. Which I anticipate it being a little bit easier as my tech stack figures out. And bam. All right. Welcome to the Daily Live. Today is, what is today? Friday, March 13th. It's Friday the 13th. Oh my goodness. I'm scared, y'all. This is the Daily Sigh. This is the entrepreneurial daily mastermind. We go live every single day at 6 p.m. Eastern. Get a bunch of entrepreneurs in the room to talk about what's actually happening. If you want the Daily Sigh delivered directly to your inbox, go to dailysci.ai. If you want to join us live, go to dailysci.ai. And I got a collection of what's happening now for y'all. Um, I actually one of the most important things that I've been exposed to this week came from my front row dad brothers. This guy, Will Taubenheim, who's a two-time NASA award-winning engineer, wrote a 248,000 word proprietary research paper on the collision of artificial intelligence, energy scarcity, semiconductor monopolies, and the global labor market disruption already reshaping who wins and who loses. He called it the 2026 State of AI report. Here's the thing that blew my mind. A couple of sound bites for you. First, 90 to 98% of AI's true cost is hidden. Every AI tool you use today is subsidized by venture capital. The real price is 10 to 50 times what you pay. Totally reasonable when you look at the cost of compute. The next one though, this is the one that scares me, and I'd love for us to talk about whether or not we even believe or agree with. I'll tell you, it aligns with my material experience. 23.8% is the true US unemployment rate. The headline rate is 4.4%. When you count everyone who can't find adequate work, nearly 1 in 4 Americans is, quote, functionally underemployed or unemployed. 92% of advanced chips come from one island. That island, for those of us that went to public schools, Taiwan. Taiwan's on the eastern part of the world, and it's 100 miles from China. And from a geopolitical perspective, I have heard rumors and rumblings that China wants Taiwan, and there's nothing stopping them from taking it, which means if China takes Taiwan, 92% of all advanced chips, which are required, they're the necessary technical prerequisite to all AI, are now in the hands of our economic competitors, which is really, really interesting. This report is absolutely worth reading. Shout out to Will Taubenheim for pulling it together. Again, two-time NASA award-winning engineer, founder of Lost Frame Ventures. I don't know this cat. I'm not giving him a shout out for any other reason than his reporting was amazing, phenomenally well researched. And the thing that I love most about it is, actually, as a matter of fact, let me just share my screen. Here's what I did. I had my EA, he published this as a web page. I had my EA summarize it for me as a document so that I could use it for AI training. This is the document. Shout out to Gina, my EA. This is the document that she created for me. I'll drop this into chat for anybody who showed up live. But the thing that I love that he did that I really appreciate is he showed his, first of all, he properly cited the work, so all citations are intact, but he also showed his research methodology. So he kind of shows you how he reaches some of the conclusions he reaches, which is why I wanted to hand this to AI just to see, to be honest with you, the thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to have a deep research conversation with my little AI buddies and ask them, what should I be buying? What assets should I be snapping up? Which has not been um, it's been an exercise that's actually been yielding fruit for me. And I'm not the only one, I think, that's doing that. So that was the lead story. Next up, Gumdrop lands $50 million from Benchmark to turn every employee into an AI agent builder. This is an article from TechCrunch that I think is worth pursuing. This marks a shift from providing, quote, AI co-pilots to giving non-technical staff the ability to build their own custom autonomous agents. Here's what they're not saying. You hand AI to somebody to equip them with the ability to ultimately replace themselves. Somebody made the point to me that I really appreciated. They said that the Luddites weren't afraid of technology. That's how they're characterized. The classic Luddite example of people who are trying to tear down tech. They're not afraid of technology. Or what was it? It's not that they're repelled by technology or don't understand technology. It's actually that they understand it better than anybody. That's why they're repelled by it, because they know that the technology is going to replace them. So I think the thing to do in these particular contexts is you have to align incentives with whoever it is you're handing these AI tools to. From market news, vibe coding startup Replit closes $400 million round at a $9 billion valuation. I like Replit a lot. Replit, from a development perspective, or at least I've been led to understand, is one of the vibe, or I think it might be the only vibe coding tool that allows for the visibility and infrastructure that would be necessary for a software developer to take over midstream. And for some of my dev buddies who've joined this call, maybe you can tell me if I said that right. I don't really understand the value proposition beyond that, but I know that I think coders prefer Replit among others. If you're not playing the vibe coding game, y'all, that's the game to play. If you want to play vibe coding and you want to do it for free and you want to learn from the best people in the whole wide world, go to vcinc.ai. From Zoom, this is scary. Zoom debuts digital twin AI avatar. Zoom is evolving from a utility meeting app into a full AI-first workplace suite that can summarize calls and draft follow-ups automatically. Photorealistic AI avatars can now join meetings and engage in conversations on your behalf when you're overbooked or not camera ready. That means, who do I have here? I've got Brandon, Grant, Jason, Dylan. I don't even know if y'all are real. There's no way to know. Dylan doesn't look real to me at all. Hey, Clinton, thanks for being here. I don't know if you're real. There's no way to know. That could be a photorealistic AI avatar created by Zoom. Apple's foldable iPhone is basically a tiny iPad from Bloomberg. Dude, this is how you know the wizard is dead. Apple has produced and innovated nothing since Steve Jobs died. They're just like, we're going to make it a little bigger. We're going to make it a little smaller. We're going to smash it in half. It's starting to get stupid. And the expected price point is north of $2,000. I love that we're back to the flip phones. Very last main lead story is from VC News Daily. Backup secures $26 million Series A for AI supply chain OS. This is interesting because I think this is actually really applicable to small businesses. Vertical AI solutions are now tackling high complexity industries like supply chain with native operating systems. The fact that they're going as niche as they're going speaks to what I think is a logical fallacy in the world, in the minds of small businesses. Small businesses have, generally speaking, been safe from massive shifts. Things like GDPR is an example. GDPR is a compliance requirement out of Europe that requires businesses to be, I guess, transparent with their data. What's interesting about GDPR is it's technically impossible to be compliant with because it's written by a bunch of geriatric morons that don't understand the internet. But if you're not doing a certain amount of revenue or have a certain number of employees or clients, it's not applicable to you. Most small businesses fall under the blast radius of most change. That's not true with AI. AI actually goes granular naturally. So if I owned a business for a long, long time. I sold it recently. It was my third successful exit. I owned a business that helped Montessori schools with their marketing, their tech stack. And for the longest time, I thought I'm safe because Montessori is a niche so small, nobody will ever enter it. AI is the type of disrupting technology that could take Montessori and steal it from me. Some of the backup news stories don't feel important. Well, Webflow buys AI content platform Vidoso. That's interesting. Acquisition aimed at automating content generation and design, something we all want to do. Yeah, none of these feel good enough to waste your time with. Those are the stories. So you're caught up. If you want a summary of the Daily Sigh sent directly to your inbox, go to dailysigh.ai. The idea here is that this is your sigh of relief. You're an entrepreneur trying to keep up with everything that matters. We go live at the end of the day because you're already overwhelmed. You got everything done. You checked it all off the box. You were super productive, and you still thought to yourself, man, I don't know what's happening. If only there were a brown man with beautiful hair who would read all the news so I don't have to and then summarize it for me in a humorous way. Well, here I am for you. That's done. And now it's time to mastermind. If you want to come join us live, go to dailysigh.ai. That will lead to the community. From the community will lead to the Zoom link. From the Zoom link will lead to epic conversation, which we will begin post haste. Gentlemen, thanks for being here. Appreciate y'all. Who's got something epic for us? Come out swinging. Jason, AI priors answered. I hope so. Y'all don't know
I
if
have
I'm...
practical update to my
Dylan, you're always first, dude. Shout out
theory
to
from
Dylan for
yesterday.
being first.
I
Yeah.
waited this time. I didn't
I
have my
love it, man. No, be bullish. Be bold. Be brave.
I told myself I was going to let other people talk today. Uh, okay, so yesterday I said or proposed the theory that two AI agents could communicate without English and it would be more efficient.
Mm.
They would just exchange the underlying values pre-English, which I have a better answer as to what those are that we can talk about later. The practical application is well, first, AI did say it's possible if it's the same model and they have the same context. But even if they have different contexts, things will start to be lost in translation. And if it's a different model, then it's like uh, you know, things start to get much more complicated. But you don't have to be more precise than English. You can just be more precise than prose. So you can create a
Mm.
structured shorthand language that you can use. I don't think anyone's doing the interagent communication here, but if you're doing anything that's API based, it's costs or it's charged by tokens. And so if you reduce your number of tokens
Oh
by
wow, dude,
reducing
what a big point
the
there.
the pros, like you can use like JSON or YAML or any other like markup language. You can do like key value pairs, and that also removes the ambiguity because it's like a set of commands. And then once you have that established, you can minify it, which is if you've ever seen like min.js or min.css, it replaces all the variable names with a single letter,
Mm.
and then there's just like a Rosetta Stone to because with code it doesn't matter, it just executes, but with this it needs to know what you're talking about. But so you can really shrink down the size, and also every time you go back and forth that goes into the context window, and your context window fills up, and your context window is included in your API call and it counts towards your token count. So you have smaller requests, smaller context, uh smaller requests travel faster through electrons can only travel 70% the speed of light through a fiber optic cable. um so that's
Yo,
the
this call is over. The minute Billy dropped that one, I'm like, we don't even need to be here anymore. What you just shared is not insignificant. Um, the ability to condense compute cost, I think in short order doesn't feel important, but in long order, especially if you're looking for competitive advantage, especially when compute's going to get maybe more competitive, dude, that's freaking huge. Like that's a compound interest discussion. Hey, Elliot Dean's here, or his AI avatar. What's up, buddy? Um,
the fun extension of that is that if you took two AI agents, they would be able to make their own shorthand with each other. It would just be much more efficient to do it yourself. It would take a lot of back and forth. But in the future, that may be different. But for
yeah,
now, it's better to just write it yourself and give it to both of them.
it's like a court stenographer. So I want to challenge this. First of all, I think it's brilliant. So I'm not challenging it for the sake of it, but a couple of things come to mind. One of them is it feels like one of the stated and unstated goals of AI is to um, replicate, intuit, and model human behavior. And we don't speak in shorthand per se, or maybe we do, like slang, colloquialisms, jargon, semantics, like all that shorthand. So, and the nuances of the lexicon of linguistic connection are important. The best example I have of this, and I think that this blew my mind when I learned it. And I don't know if y'all know this or if somebody has more context on it, so I'd love to learn more if you do. But Russians see a shade of blue none of us see. Have y'all heard this? You know what I'm talking about? Russians see a shade of blue, like there's a spectrum of blue, and everybody in Russia apparently sees a shade of blue that none of us are capable of seeing. Why? Because they have a word for it. They have a word for some weird reason. In the same way that the color orange wasn't named until after the fruit. They have a word for this color blue, and because they have a word for it, the whatever neural synapses are necessary to be built inside of your brain that helps you identify the difference in the shade of blue were built. And it's a oft-cited example of how language is a precursor, and that's biblical. In the beginning was the word was with God, and the word was God. The logos is the word, like the foundation of all Western culture and society is the word. And so I wonder what are the implications of shorthanding? Like from a development perspective, if we're dealing with something that's extraordinarily left brain, it feels way more efficient. But then if you're dealing with like literature, You know, like I'm obsessed with Russian literature. I think Dostoevsky is the best that's ever done it. And I know for a fact I can only get 30 to 40% of what he's delivering because the Russian language is so colorful and it's filled with metaphor. And there's elements of it that you'll never capture. And I do wonder, like, if we were to shorthand our conversations with AI, are we losing some of what's important on the right brain end of things? Soft, mild challenge, Dylan. I'd love maybe to tee you up first since this is your topic.
It is situational. So if you were just conversing with it, you probably wouldn't do this. If it had a well-defined job
Yeah.
or set of jobs, then you probably wouldn't do this in chat. This would be for API requests, MCP requests, tool requests, um, things like that. I want to push back on the Russian thing a little bit.
I'm ready.
So they say Inuits have 40 different words for snow. They're all different types of snow.
Yeah.
So does that mean they see snow differently than we do?
Dude, I mean, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I'm not an Inuit. I don't know. I'm gonna go find the article on Russians. Russians see more blue. I gotta find because when I read it, it felt way more. Russian speakers are faster distinguishing between light blue, which is goluboy, and dark blue, sini, than English speakers, as their language treats these as distinct colors rather than shades of the same color. This linguistic difference creates a quote categorical perception advantage, making them about 10% faster at identifying boundary shades in color discrimination tests. I don't know. I do think I think that language is important. Another example, this will get real racist, so let's do it. The inability for the Westerner, not the inability, the Western interpretation of Middle Eastern rhetoric is caustic. So like, um, I don't know if you guys have been to a Middle Eastern country, but even like going to Egypt and trying to trade at the bazaar, uh, Arabic specifically is a very colorful language. It's again filled with metaphor. And they don't update the language. They don't add new words. They take all their old words and then so like, space shift would be like chariot of fire type thing. I don't really know what it is. My ex-wife is an Arab. Um, and that color causes problems culturally because Arabs will say things, especially while they're negotiating that feel very like almost vicious to us. Something like, I'll skin you alive type of, again, rhetoric where a Western ear goes, oh my God, you just threatened my life in certain contexts or situations. It's very much almost just like African Americans play the dozen in a similar fashion. When they're saying something about your mom, they're not actually saying it about your mom. It's almost like an intellectual stress test. And I just feel like that stuff is really important. And my fear in what would it be called? Would it be called like the condensation of language in order to communicate with AI? I might lose some of what feels important from a culture perspective. But your counter is very well received, dude. It's like, well, we're not using it for just talking to it. We're using it for MCPs, API calls. Like it would be clinical, right? It's like the raw clinical data transfer is summarized in a way that makes my compute cost less than your compute cost. And then in that weird competitive advantage, I win. So I'm sorry. I got real racist. It was Russians I hit, Arabs. Let's offend everybody this call. Clinton, you've got your hand up.
Um, so I feel like I read an article recently, actually months ago, where two scheduling bots got on the same call, realized there were bots, and then developed their own shorthand. And it
Dude, I
sounded
think
like
that's what started this conversation. Wasn't that what you were talking about yesterday, Dylan?
I think Brandon mentioned that
Yeah, I
yesterday.
Oh, that
brought
was
that up.
Brandon?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
brought that
okay,
up.
yeah, it sounded
Yeah.
like a bunch of like modem screeching. But the call, the task was accomplished in so much less time than was normally necessary.
Oh, that's what that chat was. Somebody chatted in saying it already happened. Sounds like screeching.
Yeah,
Oh,
that was
yeah, that
me.
was you.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So what do we,
It
oh,
was like a
dude,
fax machine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
like America Online back in the day.
Yeah.
What's the action item there then? So if you're watching this, what's the takeaway? What can you do functionally?
If you run a call center, then goddamn, like how much you can accomplish in a single day just grows exponentially.
Yeah. I have a case study on the call center piece. I had a friend, I mean, we're still friends. I have a friend who does a not insignificant amount of gross revenue, 8 figures gross revenue a year, and through a really high value sales team. He ended up being seduced by an AI call center solution that had demonstrable results. He runs a test for 30 days. They outpaced his sales team by a million miles. It was unreal. He showed me the data. And so, being a fast mover, he cuts his sales team. And these are people that some of them have been with him for years, and they're hard to cultivate. And anybody who's ever tried to build a sales team knows, especially if you're doing like the setter and the closer and all that garbage, it's hard to build. And so he cuts his sales team. The AI tool just kills it for, I don't know how long he was running. I mean, voice AI has not been around that long either, right? So it was like 180 days or something. I'm making that up, but I'm getting the gist right. And then there's this precipitous cliff, and it just falls to absolute nothing. And then he goes back and he does the autopsy, and he's a pretty self-aware cat, so he was not, it's not a dummy. And he goes, man, AI was just closing everybody that we've warmed up. We had a pipeline that we've, because they've been in business for years and years and years and years and years. So when they threw out the AI call center, it was closing everybody that was warm, and their pipe was about 180 days. And so he lost the pipe, and now he's calling his sales guys back and like, can you know what I mean? Like, you want to. So there's some nuance to, I think, the deployment of some of those tools. Elliot Dean, you got your hand up.
Hello, hello. I want to bring in some healthy English skepticism to some of the AI stuff. Um, uh, I don't think you know this, Kasim, but actually one of my friends ended up doing quite well out of AI data centers, and he's now the main partner for Google for their infrastructure.
Uh-oh.
But I've also spent quite a lot of time with our mutual friend Alan, who's been you may not know this as well, which is quite interesting, but our mutual friend Alan, actually, he studied AI in university 20 years ago.
I
And
did
that's
not
actually
know that.
it's
Just
his main
context for
focus, actually.
everybody. The Alan that Elliot's talking about, his voice is exactly same pitch, timbre, and articulation as Christoph Waltz. So picture Christoph Waltz, but who knows everything there is to know about AI, and then also a lot about legislation. He did some pretty deep work for us when we were working on our tokenization project. So that's Alan's context. Elliot, sorry to interrupt. Keep going.
Oh, no problem. Also, I think Genius in the Mountains in Austria. There you go. That gives you a
Yeah,
bit more.
great big beautiful beard. Yeah,
And somehow great at snowboarding as well. It's just unfair, isn't
that's
it?
funny.
But I think I agree with the headline of your report that you linked. This links into what Dylan was saying as well with the communication between bots. I don't think we're there yet, though. I think there's some fundamental structural problems with the statistical models of LLMs. I mean, last year was the last big, corporate summary of how pilots were going. And in the turn of the year, we were still having, 95% essentially stop pilot rate. And I think a lot of that is caused by the statistical nature of
What does
LLMs.
that mean, 95% stockpiler rate?
I will grab one of the articles on it that ended up on Forbes because I was just checking it to make sure I wasn't going to be
Oh, here we
ill-informing
go.
everybody. But basically, the biggest, especially the consultants that were trying to use it, whenever they tried to use it fully autonomously, we did have this significant failure rate. And I think it's basically caused by the fact that the statistical nature of the LLMs mean that you
Hmm.
have this 2 to floating 10% depending on the model um, issue with the uh, just error rate. It's quite simple to say that it's the issue with the hallucination, but it's also other types of errors as well. But you
Dude,
know,
this is so interesting. So I've seen this reported on. I've actually reported on the Daily Sigh before. 95% of enterprise AI initiatives deliver zero measurable return. This comes from MIT. But some of these are like 80% of organizations have explored or piloted generalist LLMs, 40% report deployment. That feels so high to me,
yeah.
right?
But
Like,
I can also say, maybe this is a bit of alpha for everybody for the daily side as well, but I don't in the because I'm through my friend, I'm involved in some power infrastructure deals on the higher end of volume, 200 megawatts plus. And I don't see the institutional investment slowing down.
In power
We're
specifically.
well, no, in the data centers.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Um, so I think we may be in a partial bubble, right, when people talk about these issues and this failure rate, but that may just be in some of the consumer facing apps. I think, this tide is still growing in terms of the biggest pockets in the world. And I think that kind of insane disruption we will see, and it will be one company. And I think maybe, Sim, you're already onto something when you say Google is the most likely, given that the data they have access to. But it's gonna be a snap, and we all need to be prepared, I believe, for when it happens.
Dude, that's the problem. And I'm not the first one to, I'm not the only, I've never said this actually. I'm only just a parrot. AI's winner takes all. And so it's this weird game of like the ultimate black swan
Yeah,
where as soon as someone takes it because of its scalability, they take everything. And across every level of analysis in every category. So it's not even like diversification isn't the right word. You need to be, you need to have at least a little in each one of the, and I think there's like seven, maybe like seven key, you know, camps that you can be in. And if you want some advice from a guy that has only ever lost money in the stock market, dude, go throw $100 if that's all you got into every company that's building viable AI, and there's only seven of them, because when they take off, they'll be the only things of any value economically on a long enough timeline, is the way that it's being explained. I don't know if y'all agree or disagree with that, but that does seem to be kind of the, like, that feels like the mathematician's prognostication, right? Like looking at this logically, because once somebody hits, how does it not eat everything?
yeah, 100%. And just to add to that point, that's how governments are seeing it now all over the world. That shift's happened in the last year or so. This is why we're seeing so many governments put so much money into it. I mean, of course, they've got bigger problems at the moment in the Middle East, but even the UAE,
Oh, that has a lot to do with it, I think. I think the problems in
yeah,
the Middle East are, yeah, it's interesting timing to say the absolute least. It's like before I go evade Iran, let me take Venezuela so I have some backup oil. And then let me go, kick a hornet's nest that's going to have a cascading effect on supply chain issues to my biggest competitor. Because guess where China gets all their oil? I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's so obvious, it's stupid. Uh,
although, of course, now the Chinese ships are the only ones that have been given permission to leave the strait. So,
Yeah, well, and that's the way that if I were the Persians, I'd be
yeah.
doing that exact same thing too. But I think that, the powers that be or the present administration, I'm trying to be,
That's if you believe like the media and what you're seeing, right?
yeah,
Because you've got to believe it. And there's only one of the seven AI companies that has profitability, and that's Google, because
yep,
they weren't AI first. None of them make money. They're all, and this is the interesting thing about venture capital, right? Venture capital loves debt. And so everything is a loser, and it's a 7 to 10 multiplier of fictitious revenue that's not really coming in. The majority of people on OpenAI are free users still,
right.
right? And so,
Well, even the paid users are net negative. I mean, $20 a month is costing OpenAI more than $20. That's a
yeah.
fact. I think the 200 maybe your break even depending on their usage, but to the point that you're making, like OpenAI is hemorrhaging money. The number I read was something close to $1 trillion. They need $900 billion deployed in order to achieve whatever benchmark Altman thinks is necessary before he can start turning around profitably. But that doesn't mean profitable in accordance with their cap table and debt. It's profitable from that point moving forward.
Right.
Yeah. But I think he's banking on what will end up being something kind of like an inflationary event. Like as soon as AI functions, it almost doesn't matter what it costs to get there because now it can produce so much.
And the power plant option, this presidency basically spoke about last week or 2 weeks ago whenever Trump spoke, he said that AIs can now create their own power plants, basically, because we can't have the
I didn't know that.
subsidization. Yeah, that was a pretty huge one, right? So like AI companies decide to start generating their own nuclear power plants to cover their own power because they don't want the general population's electric bills going through the roof
Yeah.
because of subsidizing all the power that they're generating themselves. And so this has never been happened in the United States to have private power. And then they're going to be able to probably produce more power and subsidize it back to the grid itself. And probably another way to sustain the grid that is old and weak in the United States.
To back up on that a little bit, though, are you saying that we've given the green light for privatized nuclear power?
Yeah,
More of
Trump
a
did in his speech.
requirement.
Yeah, in his speech, he basically, said I'm opening up the ability for these AI companies to. I don't know if Anthropic's in it because he's in an open war with Anthropic right now, but he's basically said they can build their own power plants in order because he does not want the American people to be paying higher rates because of the data plants that are being built at mass speed across the United States.
Yeah, but does power plant mean nuclear specifically? Like, does that lift whatever? I don't know what regulations exist, but I'm sure they are.
There have been specific regulation introduced over the past half a year to assist with the private building of all types of power with expedited building allowances.
Yeah, what I
But
mean,
I
what is
have
it?
to,
China's building 50 new ones and we're not building any is the last thing I read.
yes,
Yeah, you were
Mm.
gonna say, Elliot, I
they're still
interrupted you.
massively outpacing. Sorry, no, I just wanted to say that from the deals I've seen though, it's still quite a pickle to finance large power
Mm.
systems. I think fundamentally the problem that's going to happen in America is the only feasible way to do it in a short period of time is going to be solar, given the great solar time that you guys have. I'm involved in a few of these projects right now in New Mexico, but um,
Indiana solar
that
plant just got decimated 2 days ago.
What happened?
There was a storm that came through, completely decimated everything. Now it's poisoned the soil, so it's not even used for cannot even be used for farmland. Yeah,
Wow.
it's completely destroyed.
yeah,
It basically put it in a tornado belt, which
So
shouldn't
I
have
want
been.
to bring this down a little bit, if y'all don't mind. Just the promise to the listener is something actionable, and this is important information. I'm not saying it's not. We're not too far afield at all. But what I would like to do is to direct the conversation and ask, what does this mean for small business owners? Like you're doing sub $10 million a year gross rev. What should you be paying attention to, especially in a world where your power bills could go through the roof or AI compute could cost you? And I think I just stumbled upon it, part of it. We have to be careful about the reliance on AI infrastructure from a business perspective because there's no guarantee that the costs that we're paying now are what we're going to be paying in the future. As a matter of fact, it's almost virtually
it's
guaranteed.
impossible.
Yeah, those costs will spike at some point, and now it's a game of chicken. If you're going to build a business on an AI backbone, can you scale up? I hate the word scale, it's stupid. Can you scale up before the costs flip? And if you do scale up, what's that fun thing? We lose money on every deal, but we make it up in scale. Like even if you do scale up, but then you end up with infrastructure cogs that kill your profitability, that's not a business anybody wants to be holding. So I think the first thing is cautioning small businesses against um, committing to AI infrastructure from a COGS perspective. That's the note that I would have. Anybody else have another note that you'd offer
Uh, I,
SMBs?
I would definitely put a bullet point to add there if I could add an actionable note is that if your business relies on high power usage,
Mm,
be aware of this happening because the main takeaway that they should have from this is that actually the utilities themselves are starting to become unreliable in certain areas that have approved a lot of data centers as well.
mm.
So they're telling people, yeah, you can have access to the grid of this amount of power for whatever you're doing with it, and then they're going back on that in certain parts of the US. So just be aware that the power starts to run out relatively soon because of all this build.
Dude, could I tell you what I'm doing? Uh, for this exact reason. All things digital feel so um fragile. Or it's actually the opposite, isn't it? It's almost feels so close to a degree of anti-fragility that takes it outside of my ability to grapple with. Um, I want to go hardcore analog. Like I'm trying to buy a septic company right now. Me and my buddy Perry talk about this. Like HVAC, concrete repair, grease trap cleaning. The thesis that Perry has that I think is really smart is everybody with the 401k, because we're going to see the biggest labor collapse in human history, right? Everybody with a 401k will borrow against it and buy themselves a little franchise or a job. So you don't want to be a house painter or a landscaper or a handyman because anybody who goes to Home Depot and spends $150 can now hang a shingle saying, this is what I am. You want to have some business with a minimum infrastructure requirement that's high enough, like septic. A septic truck is $250,000 and nobody wants to pump shit except me. That's at least priced out of the majority of what's going to be something like a Steinbeck-esque band of roving CPAs looking for work. And to the point that Elliot just made, you also want to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, no matter how analog, it's not hyper power dependent, hyper data dependent. Because somebody could look at an analog business and think to themselves, like, oh, this is safe from AI. Well, not if it requires the same infrastructure that AI needs, because AI is going to be prioritized over whatever that happens to be.
Just for a visual for the viewers as well, because I don't know if you've seen this report from the 5th. You may have because it was quite. But if you scroll down there, you can see they've got a really nice visual graph for the coverage of AI in different industries. If you scroll down in that report about a third of the way, the theoretical capability and observed usage by occupational category.
Observed AI coverage versus theoretical AI coverage. Wow. Management, business, finance, computer, math, architecture, engineering, and then life and social sciences are basically covered, right? To the tune of about 80% is the lowest, if I'm reading that right. Social services drops, makes sense. Legal, thank God. Finally, if the only thing, the only silver lining to the labor collapse is all the lawyers.
Finally gonna get them.
Yes, dude, this is Shakespeare's dream. Um, Education and library, arts and media. That's interesting. Peter Diamandis said this. Peter Diamandis says AI's death to Netflix. Because imagine my kids. I don't know. Have you guys watched One Piece? It's so
Mm.
good, by the way. If you don't watch One Piece, it's like you're missing out on. So I don't watch a lot of TV, but it's just like it's very whimsical. It's these little band of pirate kids that run around, and my boys love it. And every Friday we watch one movie, and so now we're watching One Piece. And imagine for a moment if you watch One Piece that, you don't like the fact that this character won the sword fight. You can just go and prompt VO3 and say, "Hey, I want that episode again, but I want to be the protagonist. I want to change the story this way." And, I get the girl at the end, basically. Like, how on earth could Netflix ever compete against that? And if you're looking at some of what, like, my boy just goes into VO3 and Grok and he makes these movies for himself, and they're so good. They're like extraordinarily good. So the arts and media thing, that makes a lot of sense to me. I'm surprised that's not higher. And then office and admin, obviously. I wonder how long this is now. Theoretical AI coverage is now, right? Is that what the article's saying?
No, I believe observed is now, and they're saying
Observed is okay.
theoretical is in the next couple of years.
Well, I mean, theoretical could, I don't know. That could be divorced from timeline and just it would require deployment. I don't know. I'll read the article. Sorry, it's maybe a silly question. The other thing that occurs to me is what we're really waiting for is AI and robotics to meet. Like that meet cute, agriculture, construction, installation, repair, production, transportation. That whole quarter of the graph here, uh, grounds maintenance, food and service, protective service. That's scary, isn't it? Healthcare
Yeah.
support. Like, I mean, half of this is just waiting on robotics. This
Did
is
you
great, dude.
did you see the podcast with Elon Musk and Peter Diamandis on, saving for retirement and having money basically in 10 to 20 years is going to be irrelevant?
Oh, what, you're talking about the one that just dropped like 2 days ago?
Yeah. Well, I
No, I
mean,
haven't watched it yet.
January, I think it was it's been he's had this conversation from 2016 to 2026, but he had an episode with Peter Diamandis where he brought it up again. And they're just saying that the robotics and AI is going to be at such an advanced level that there's going to be such an abundance of anything that we would need to have. And I wonder, how do you get to that concept where
Yeah,
we're not going to need to work, we're not going to need to save for retirement, we're going to have robotics to take care of us in our old age and take have security. So uh, yeah,
that's an if, right? It's like if the overlords share.
right.
Uh, yeah, that's where democracy will always lead to socialism, which is an interesting thought experiment. Like, and it's because of the Pareto distribution. A minority of people produce the majority of the outputs, which means a minority of people yield a majority of the returns. And interestingly, it's on a bell curve. And so the minority end up getting an outweighted amount of returns, but then the majority looks at the minority and says, well, I want some of that. And in a democratic system, they vote it to themselves. And, you know, that, which is the way it's always worked and always will work. And then in this particular situation and context, you do wonder, like, well, what's the incentive for the, 1% of 1% that are actually going to own this technology at that point? Uh, and I mean, who are we fooling? They own the government. Why would they stay democratic? And I mean, I guess at a certain point, you kind of just want to have faith in the human condition. And it's somebody would want to stay democratic because they don't want to live in a world where the alternative, I think, is dark.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's Peter Diamandis is very optimistic in that way. He thinks AI is the best thing that could happen to humanity in 100 years. In 50 years, it's a little shaky. Um, Yeah, I do think that the move to UBI is going to be faster than people expect. Look at what happened in COVID, dude. We printed money so fast. It was insane. 40% of the
Where,
US dollar that exists was printed in a 2-year period, and there was no question. So I don't think UBI is like, it feels like an absolute inevitability.
man, that first off, what they printed didn't go where it needed to go, and
No, Brendan, are you saying there was
none of what they
corruption?
gave out could have paid anybody's bills or expenses,
Yeah,
period. You know what I mean? Like, wow, that was an experience to live through, wasn't it?
bro, that was
And
yeah.
every day after has been an experience to live through. Yeah.
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 Well, this got real depressing. I'm so sorry, guys. We went straight dystopian. How do we bring it back? What's something like functional that's working for y'all right now that everybody needs to know about? I'll go first is Claude Cowork. Holy shit. It does so much. Like I just tell it to do stuff. I had it build a whole website for me start to finish. And then the little nuances that I don't like, it fixes. Like it does real tasks. And it integrates with things. It integrates with Gmail, Google Drive. It pulls in information. It searches all those repositories. It's unbelievable.
Are you scheduling things?
No, should I? How do you do that?
Yeah, you can schedule tasks that use your skills in Cowork.
Oh, that's cool. I guess I've scheduled a daily update. Like, tell me what's going on with the day. That's super cool.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then Claude has, there's a library of skills, right? Where do you go, Claude skills? Where do you find all those? I keep hearing about like the Claude skills
Marketplace.
marketplace.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But where is it? Is it in Claude app? I'm sure it is.
I've honestly just been building out like my own little library of them so I started with like the prompt library, turned those into skills, and then brought them into here.
Hmm.
Um, and then what, like you said, the killer part is being able to integrate into your tech stack. If the rest of your tools have MCPs, like the CRM I'm using right now, basically is Claude in a CRM, and that thing has been so ridiculously clutch because it pulls in all the correspondence I have with clients and prospects every week or every day. And then like I use that skill to basically say, hey, pull from day and let's talk through all the stuff that happened this week so we can do better next week.
I love that. My business partner did this thing where he pulls in everybody's Fathom and he reviews their performance on the calls, improvement opportunities, and then kind of like aggregates those and reviews them with everybody. And then the next week they have kind of their marching orders,
Oh yeah.
which is a little freaky.
Oh, totally. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, that thing's badass. Oh, Clinton just dropped it here. What is this, Clinton? Oh, this is the skills directory. Thanks, dude. Yeah.
Hmm.
It's so funny because you don't even need to know, like you just ask it to do things and then it does it. By the way, if you're watching us live, you can come join us. Go to dailysigh.ai. And we're going live every single day at 6 p.m. We're going to have a daily entrepreneurial mastermind because honestly, I think that's what it's going to take to not just stay ahead, but uh, man, God, I want to win, dude. You know what I mean? I think a small percentage of people are really going to win big, and I want to be one of them. So making a couple of bets.
Yeah, I think that's been the biggest challenge is just to keep slapping myself in the face and pushing. Stop thinking the old way. Stop.
Yeah.
You've got just unlimited everything at your disposal. Stop thinking, oh, what kind of info product could I make today? It's
Yeah.
like, what could I take over? What could I start from scratch? That's been the big unlock. Trying to figure that out.
Yeah. Perry Belcher said something really smart. He's like, what would you do if you had an unlimited army of PhDs available to beck and call for 20 bucks a pop? You know, that's the paradigm shift. Clinton,
Yeah.
you had your hand up?
Yeah, I've got no coding skills at all, but I've been able to vibe code two apps that I'm working on. One is like a personal pet project with a very broad customer base. It's a music theory app or education app.
Cool.
And the other one is more for social workers and their workload and cutting that in half. The social worker one, I've got a potential client on, and I'm like, okay, I've built this, I've got them on the hook, but how do I secure it and keep people from sharing passwords and
Mhm.
getting all of the monetary value I can out of it.
Is
Because
your plan to play the SaaS game? Or are you trying to get a like a per usage monetization model, or are you going to hand them the app?
if I got a big enough number, I would hand them the app, just for the good that it would do, and then work on my own prep project. But if I don't have that, and if I go into business for myself on that app, then I would want to pay per agency or per seat kind of cost going.
I can tell you, I'm having this conversation with we own a vibe coding incubator, so this is a conversation we have all the time. How do you monetize the apps? And I have an opinion that runs counter to, there's 4 partners in total, and all of us have very, very, very varying opinions. My opinion is, um, basically you take the lift. So I think the smartest way to play the vibe code game isn't to try to sell the application. It's to say something like, and it's industry dependent, but depending on what the application does, if there's an efficiency increase or a cost decrease or, a new business increase, it's like, hey, I'll split that with you. There's no skin off your back whatsoever. Um, like if I feel like I can increase your profitability by 10%, how about you give me half of it? That's,
Mhm.
in half of the net or half of the, so, and what I like about eating what you kill is, um, you assume all the risk, you de-risk the situation, and then you also put them in a position where, uh, the move over to your infrastructure is enough friction for them to not want to have to recreate it themselves elsewhere. So it's not like they've seen it and demoed it and said like, oh wow, thank you, Clinton, I'll just go do this all by my lonesome. Now it's
Yeah,
like, shit, we're already using this dude's stuff,
yeah.
and the lowest uh friction point is just continuing. I don't know if that makes sense with your model or your app, but you have to have like a demonstrable revenue event. But that's the
Well,
model that I like the most.
so it does, but in the particular use case I'm attacking right now, there's a ton of long-winded, complicated math that they have to do for certain clients that I am turning into a matter of seconds.
Mm.
And it could do an entire country of beneficiaries a lot of good, like millions of customers. But I'm not really in a position to run a business right now. And I would love to just hand the baton to somebody and say, hey, run with this, do all the good you can, give me a large portion of money so I can take care of my own problems. And then I want to go back to school.
Mm.
And that's what I want to do and have my baby project that I work on for music theory. Because I also teach guitar on Thursdays and I teach technique, not theory. So the app fills in what I don't teach.
I'm gonna be more combative than is appropriate, and then I'll peel it back.
Okay.
um Man, you've done the hard part, dude. And I feel like you're gonna stop on the goal line and be like, does anybody want to take the ball?
Mm.
uh
Okay.
You know, like you identified this really important need, you built the application that suits it, you know who the prospect is.
Hmm.
Part of me, and this isn't going to be an applicable business model for very long, but for the next 2 or 3 years, there's going to be a lot of arbitrage opportunities. Part of me is like, dude, don't tell them you have AI. Just tell them, hey, what if I did your math for you? You
Mhm.
know, like I'm really good at this. I have a system. I have a whatever. You can come in and be like, how long is it taking you? Well, it's taking us 4 hours per whatever. You know, what if I took that on? Now, what is that worth?
Yeah.
And what you don't want to do is show them the lever because once people see it, it diminishes the value in their mind. Um, but to the point that I think you just made, in order to do that, you've got to run the business. That has to be you. Um, Maybe there's a strategic you can approach, like an intermediary between, because it's the, I don't know.
Like a
Uh,
third party partner of some
yeah,
kind.
somebody who already has the access and the relationships. I actually just did that. I built an agency, and then because of my health stuff, I decided I was like, dude, I don't want to build a business. Let me go see who I can partner with. And I gave up I'm a majority, but I kept what felt healthy, and they're paying all the bills, and it's all their customers, and they're running everything. But I feel warm and fuzzy about it, so that might be an opportunity for you.
Okay. So considering my most of my targeted customers are nonprofits that
Mm.
run on donations.
Dude, there's not a lot of people that have more money than nonprofits.
Right.
I was a certified provider for NPower, which is a Bill Gates nonprofit, Bill Gates funded nonprofit that gave technology services to other nonprofits. I've never seen coffers so full and so easy to get to because they have these spend mandates. They're like, if we don't spend this money,
They lose it.
we don't get it next year. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, not I've bro, just cheap to slaughter. Yeah, I'm not a fan of nonprofits either. I think they precipitate whatever it is that they're, but not all of them. Not all of them.
Oh, not all of them. But
Yeah,
my thought was they have all these donors, they keep them running. They must have those connections already that would be able to help me scale this out or deploy it across the country.
yeah. Dude, go get your hooks into a guinea pig and do it for free. I know that runs counter to all the advice that everybody else likes to give, but that's always been a lot of benefit to me is just go to somebody and be like, look, I feel like I can prove this thesis out. I'll do it for you, zero cost out of pocket. What you like about that too is you don't have to show them how the sausage is made. You just show them the end result. So you're like,
Right.
my only ask is if I can do this, can you be a case study and an advocate? So, you know, that takes a little bit of cold outreach potentially, depending on what your relationships are like, but you get somebody who, you know, bites in, they're actually committed, probably more than, you know, a trial customer would be. You prove out the model, they're blown away, and now you have somebody that gets to play hub and spoke a little bit.
So here's where it gets more interesting. I showed it to the executive director of a particular organization. He loves it. And one of the bean counters is like, hey, let's set up a call next week. Let's set up a call next week. Okay, I have more questions now. Let's set up a call next week.
Mm.
So it's like every 9 out of 10 people at the organization are just gung ho about it. I got one bean counter who is like, what, he wants to dig in, find out what the sausage is made of and all that stuff.
Well, and isn't it his job that this thing does?
No, it actually enables him to do his job even better.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like and the irony is they run a mental health organization. So I'm like, how are we dealing with stinking thinking right now?
Hmm.
So like, how do I get him past that point where he's like, he's still thinking that continuous effort is required for continuous money. Like if I'm the software game, like all the effort's up on the front end and I'm just rolling out and correcting as it goes along. That's my thought. His thinking is, well, if you're constantly working on it, we constantly want to pay you. So I'm like, how do I deal with that now?
Well, there's no reason that you wouldn't constantly be working on it because no matter what it is, there's going to be iteration, changes in compliance requirements, and to be honest with you, just risk mitigation, which is what
Yeah.
nonprofits are more worried about than anything. So I think you could paper yourself up on retainer. If your real goal is to go back to school, that sounds like, I mean, that sounds silver platter. Dylan, you got
Mm.
your hand up. What ideas do you have for Clinton?
Do you hear me? I'm
Yeah,
on my
we got
phone
you
and my
now.
power went out. Okay.
Yeah, we can hear
I'm a vibe coding skeptic.
you.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I don't think that the bean counter is so far off base. Um, And I'm willing to be challenged on this because I have not vibe coded. I always read the code produced, but I think vibe coders will inevitably run into a problem that AI can't solve and will need to hire a developer. And because of the way that software was developed, it will be more difficult for the developer to come in and understand everything. And things are getting better, but I think there's a lot of Dunning-Kruger going on in that space, and that the challenges of like running a software business are the things that you just haven't quite encountered yet. And it'll be a whole new set of challenges, and I don't think you know, you may be able to overcome them. I don't know, but or I should say, I think you will be able to overcome them. I will be optimistic, but there's a lot of challenges that haven't yet been faced. And what I would say is code has become cheap. Software is still expensive. So like small things, and that's like what Cosm has been saying is like basically take a piece of the software that you're paying a lot of money for and using 1% of, and make that little 1% for yourself. I think when you start disseminating that to hundreds and then maybe thousands of people is when um, you may start running into things. And I'm working on kind of that exact scenario right now. The person had a team building the software with the help of AI, and they just couldn't do anything anymore. Like they uh had kind of painted themselves into a corner. And also they didn't know what network latency is. And that is a deployment thing, not really a coding thing. That's an infrastructure thing. And that may be handled by other, I think some of those apps will deploy it for you. Like I said, I don't have the full set of, information to be like definitive on this. It's just my opinion. And I would like to be challenged on it.
No, you said something that I want to double click on, which is code is cheap, software is expensive. What's happening is people are seeing how easy it is to create some of this functionality, and they think to themselves like, "Oh, I've got a SaaS business." And it's like, well, you don't have customer service, you don't have fulfillment, you don't have billing, you don't have returns. Like, there's so much infrastructure that goes into a business like that. There's a reason agencies aim at 15% margins at the high water mark. In the vibe coding space, you lose all the margin of SaaS and you basically just become a value-added reseller and agency. And the best I've ever done in the agency space is well, I guess that's not true. I was about to say 40%, but my Montessori agency did a lot better. And it's still not great because you have to answer the phone. And that's an infrastructure piece. So I like the idea. If you try to, it's almost like overplaying your hand. If you try to play your hand as though this is a SaaS product, well, now you have to support it as a SaaS product. And that model only works with enough clients that allow for some level of distributed infrastructure. I like you just going in and just being honest, be like, and I might even say this, be like, dude, I'm a guy. I'm a dude in his house vibe code and shit. And what's nice about that is it lets them know kind of how to negotiate with you. But that was really well said, Dylan. Dude, I own a vibe coding incubator and I'm a vibe coding skeptic too. The problem is you really do build yourself into a hole. It's not that it's one of the features of vibe coding is you can add anything. But then, you have this spaghetti monster that you've built and then somebody's MCP or API changes or the infrastructure changes or whatever. And you don't even know how it's created in order to fix it. Clinton?
But can you not also use an AI to get full context on whatever project you inherit and
Yeah, you
have it
can, but
guide
it
into?
also seems to be tech dependent. Like, and I'm going to say things I don't understand, but I'm giving you, we have 3,000 people in this vibe coding incubator. And so I'll give you some feedback that I've heard just from a support ticket perspective. If you're using Lovable and you ask Lovable for too much too soon, it'll go off the rails and you can't bring it back. You actually can't coax it back into what you want it to do. My son builds games using Base 44, and if he adds too many features, they get too robust, and then he can't actually he can't say, I don't want that feature anymore if it's not the most recent thing that's been done because it has a hard time understanding what that feature is or how it's applied. I think that's why people like Replit so much because Replit actually lets you see the code the way that it's structured. What are you using?
Replit.
Yeah. So maybe,
Yeah.
dude, maybe you kind of figured it out. Like maybe you've got the
Uh,
one.
yeah, maybe. I mean, I did practice runs in Gemini on the canvas and was like, maybe I got something here. But
I would do a lease fee, like rent and rent, like lease it out
yeah,
to
so
private
like,
companies, do yearly, 1 year, 2 year leases, right?
yeah. So
And
I'm probably gonna wind up in that what you're talking about, Brandon, where I'm leasing it out on a monthly basis. I'll have a year contract at a time. And because that's probably the middle ground with this bean counters thinking, where everybody's happy, but he's also like begrudgingly filling that line item.
I mean, the interesting thing is that with Replit, you can basically replicate it multiple times,
Yeah.
co-brand it for each of the individual companies, lease it with each of the individual companies, change the look and feel, own every domain that it sits on, right? So you built out your own moat of the product and replicated it multiple times for different companies. And it's
Mm.
their own in-house division branded for them, leased out to them.
Yeah. And then what I was trying to do also, like as I'm thinking about pre-deployment, is having like a one site location deployment, getting feedback from them so that I can optimize for every use case across the country because they'll see all kinds of situations here in New York. And then I can minimize and even develop FAQ and video trainings that will minimize how much handholding I have to do.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm at so far.
Yeah, I mean, all you got to do is basically lease it out, train an internal person on how to use it, right? And then they get access to you like, once a week or a question a day or something like that if they need some kind of help or support. Or you get a
Yeah.
VA
Build
support
into to the
person
point that
manage it.
Brandon's making. Yeah, I would build into the lease model some support, especially if you're willing to go international, you can get support for shockingly inexpensive, really high quality support, and then that gives you the ability to sort of buffer the tax that the time tax that type of thing
Mm.
is going to cost. And uh, yeah, I maybe I'm naive. I don't mind being cards on the table when I have those conversations with people. I think it's okay for you to come and be like, look, man, this is brand new. I don't know what this looks like. Like, what works for you guys? And
Yeah. I've been showing them iterations as the app evolves, and I've also made it clear that I'm not having it run dependent on AI. It's making hard coded calculations that I update personally. And that's kind of like how I've gotten as far as I have with them.
dude, that's awesome. And you have a call next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
An untimed call so far.
Yeah. Well, keep us
Yeah.
posted.
I
I've
would
got to
I would
wrap
love
up.
an
I've got
email.
two of the best little boys in the whole wide world that got to go get picked up, and we've got pizza and family movie night. But
And
Clinton, I want to thank you. This is the first round of like I think real masterminding we've done on a specific issue from somebody's business, and I'm glad that you gave us the opportunity to do that because I want to do that often and frequently. I actually think that when you get granular that way, that's where the most value comes, and everybody can benefit from it because all the advice cross pollinates. So thank you for bringing that. Took a degree of vulnerability, dude. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
And everybody who's shown up on the daily, Brandon, Grant, Clinton, Elliot, Dylan, Raphael, we didn't hear from you, but I appreciate you being here. And if you're watching this live, you can come hang out with us. Just go to dailysigh.ai, join the community, get the Zoom link. We're doing this every single day at 6 p.m. Eastern. If you'd rather just get this to your email, you can go to dailysigh.ai and subscribe. Otherwise, I will see you Monday, 6 p.m. Eastern. High fives. Great weekend. Go watch One Piece. Bye.
thank you.